Top of the morning to you. You're listening to Flow FM 92.7, your Go With The Flow radio station. It's 8 o'clock, and welcome to the Headline News Review. This is where we extensively talk about some of them. The big stories are brought to you at 7 o'clock. I am Adeyemi.
And I'm Danielle. Shitta-Bey. Thank you for joining us.
And joining us this morning is Nicholas Nwarunoye. Good morning to you, Nicholas.
Good morning. Good morning.
It's good to see you. I hope you had a great weekend.
Oh, yeah.
All right, and of course, you told me you read over the weekend.
Yes, I read. Yeah.
That's great. I did that as well too, but for a few hours.
How was it?
It was very refreshing. I just remembered you saying you read over the weekend. That you spend your weekend reading.
Yeah.
All right, it's good to have you this morning. Of course, we started from the conversation for this week. Remember, the views expressed is not in any way the position of Flow FM 92.7, but solely as expressed by the analyst this morning, Nicholas Nwarunoye.
All right, let's get into the conversation. But before then, let me remind you that we're streaming live on YouTube and on Facebook. And it's on Facebook at Flow FM NG and on YouTube at Flow FM 927. So you can get on any of those apps and get in on the live action happening in the studio right now. Let's get into this one with the IGP. He set up a disciplinary panel for senior officers to find retirement order. And so they had reached either the 60 years of age or 35 years of service. And they're refusing to quit.
Well, this will be the most controversial case of retirement in the police that we are going to be seeing. And honestly to God, my take on that is that it could have been avoided. What we are looking at is we are going to be seeing a lot of multiple litigations that are coming from there. And of course, at every point, you see fingers pointed to the IGP himself. Considering, because of the issue of allowing him to stay beyond, his tenure. And, in that story, you see that, a reference was made to the Attorney General, coming in and saying that legally it's possible for him to continue because the president said so. And you see, it raises a question. You see, when a PAMSEC, when he completes his tenure, there is no extension. And what we are talking is a merger of the civil service rules, and that is what you were saying. So you see, at the end of the day, you see a lot of contradiction regardless of whatever decision that panel takes. You still see that contradiction. It's going to be stuck. It's going to continue to stare us in the face unless we do something about it. And that goes to what I have always been saying, that you see, when you are sworn in as either a governor or the president, and you put your hands on any of the holy books and swear an oath to uphold the Constitution, as much as possible, try to do that. Because in the president might have his preference for a particular kind of person to head his number one, law enforcement agency. Considering the fact that himself and Egbetokun have come a long way. But at the end of the day, what I think that there are 100 of Egbetokuns that are within that police force that can do what Egbetokun is doing. So the president should have considered that, because we are not saying he doesn't have the power to do what he has done. But sometimes when a president should look beyond, the personal comfort zone and look at what the Constitution says and what precedents, what history will record against his name. So that is the controversy we are facing now. So ordinarily, just picking up a Shogure, see what he has turned out to now. See, and that is, it goes to show that, sometimes when you start off on something, you have to be very careful of the ancillary issues that might come up. Just picking up Irabu Rouse at the end of the day created this whole mess that all of us is now, that is not now staring all of us in the face right now.
All right, just quickly, before we move on to another story, again, is it as a result of improper, record keeping that this becomes an issue of having to wait for an order that senior officers who have attained 60 years or 35 years of service should retire? Obviously, there should be the entry date, and of course, there must be the time. Expectedly, a civil servant should retire. But why is that? Why is it like that in the police force?
No. You see, record keeping and more issues. You see, let me. Unfortunately, the truth is that most of those people who go into public service are mostly inherently dishonest people. You see, if a thorough forensic investigation is carried out on records of officers in government, more than 58% of them, you will discover that they are either forged, altered, just to keep them within the age of service. That is the simple truth. So, it's beyond that. Apart from the fact that we have a poor record keeping, history in Nigeria, the people themselves, Nigerians themselves, do a lot of things to alter their ages. You need to see what BVN has been able to do. You have instances of, you see somebody trying to doctor his age, and the BVN will say, no. At some point, this was what you recorded against these fingerprints and these biometrics we have on record. You understand? So, what we are talking about now is, things that have happened over the years, and it's going to be gradual. And I think that, this whole matter can be solved by, the police hierarchy prevailing on, the IGP to do the necessary thing, just for the sake of Nigeria.
But if this is such a known fact already, why isn't anything already done, even, for people just entering into public service?
You see, the Nigerian civil service, the Nigerian government, establishment is so humongous, is so big that when they do this recruitment thing, a lot of things happen in the shadows that people don't know. You understand? So when they come up, like that issue that is in the, you might be surprised that the court might insist that they continue serving. Might, yeah. Because you see, the thing is convoluted. At what point do you say this is right?
So there are no consequences if they find out that the age limit, it's been doctored.
Of course, there will be consequences. That is if. But you see, for them to go to court, what they have to go to the arbitration court tells you that they are sure of the fact they are presented in court. You understand? Now, I don't know. I haven't seen the file. I haven't seen the document. But you see, before you can hire a lawyer to do that kind of a thing, it means you are sure of your fact. So it tells you of the process with how we bring in police. Was it not here I was saying that, look, the recruitment process ought to change. We need to change this recruitment process where you say, okay, when you have already we are going to be, there is going to be advertisement for, police of so Keda, so 1,000 and things like that, openly and things like that. There are more forensic, more organic way of doing things like this. You can do specific targeting at high institutions. Go to high institutions. If 1,000 officers are going to retire in 5 years, you can start your recruitment from then. Looking at young people, non-impressionable. Let the system recruit them instead of passing it out to the politically exposed people to bring in candidates and things like that. No.
All right, let's move away from that conversation and onto this one about the ex-vice president, Atiku Abubakar. He's talking about transparency, and he's criticizing the government's lack of transparency in allocating the $1.7 billion for primary health care, and is warning that without clear accountability, the funds could be mismanaged, while urging Nigerians to demand proper scrutiny of the budget to ensure responsible spending. Because in the past, it was referring to past incidents where animals were blamed for missing public funds.
Yeah, monkeys stealing money,
or
and
snakes swallowing money.
You see, first of all, let me commend the former vice president. This will be the longest time he's stayed on after election period. Usually our article is always silent after elections, but you see that he's more into conversations, everyday conversations of national life now. So that is quite commendable, and that is the kind of opposition we are talking about. Now, secondly, you see the issue of budget. As it so happened, on Saturday I was on a seminar. I had to do a seminar presentation for one of my, it's part of the requirement of one of the courses I'm doing in journalism. And, the lecturer, Professor Lambe Mustafa, recently promoted, said something about, he was saying something, one of the issues that came up with was about budget, the Nigerian budget. You see, the budget thing is a very, very complex book that he confessed that even so-called academics don't even know what budget is all about. That we are talking of thousands and thousands of pages, tomes of, documents. It is so difficult to even for professors to understand the nitty-gritties of what goes into that budget. So, you see, there must be a conscious process of, distilling every facet of the budget for the average Nigerian to understand. And yes, we thank organizations like Budget, for instance. They've been doing a thorough work. NetSud in Nigeria here, in Kwara State here, they've been doing fantastic job about in these areas. But a lot needs to be done. It has to be a conscious effort by government at every tier to tier the budget provisions into tiny grainy things that Nigerians the ordinary man on the street can understand. And that speaks to what Atiku Abubakar is saying. That you see, you will always have stories about animals swallowing money. Monkeys taking money, taking a naira, and as if they spend it in the jungle. You always have that kind of story because of it's most of the spending are in the dark. So it's so easy for money to be misappropriated, vied, or outrightly stolen. So that is the lesson for me from what the former vice president has said.
All right. Let's move on to another story, and this time the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission is assuring Nigerians of the protection over the 50% telecom tariff hike that the FCCPC says they will monitor service quality and then ensure consumers receive efficient telecommunication services and proper compensation when necessary.
The problem I have with that is that most of these agencies are not proactive. When I say proactive, it is only when you complain, you wait in line before they act. You understand? I would have preferred a situation where they do something like what ICPC did last week that we are commending them. They insert themselves into the process. So I think the Consumer Protection Agency should go beyond just lip service. Yes, we know they have been up and about in recent times, taking up, but those issues that we see them coming up, to address have always been because people complain to them. You see, there are countless millions of Nigerians who suffer in silence. In fact, they don't even know they are being cheated. We are talking in terms of drop calls. We are talking of unsolicited, services that they deduct your money over. We are talking of, all manners of charges being, levied at you, and you are not even. We don't even know. You don't even know. You are ignorant of. So these are some of the things that I think they could work diligently on. It's not just about saying, because we've had that kind of stories before, that they are going to protect consumer, they are going to do that, they are going to do this, and it's beyond that now. You understand? If the 50% tariff is going to stay, then they must go beyond just what they have been doing. It's a case of inserting themselves into the process and seeing whether Nigerians have been taken care of and Nigerians are getting value for their money.
Again, a lot of Nigerians will agree with you on that because they only go to action when there is complaints and stuff like that, and then appear to be very, very, in the eyes of citizens, appear to be very good. But again, is it looking like the 50% hike might come to stay eventually?
Well, I don't think it's good.
There might be.
No, there must be a reduction.
Okay, but let's say it stays. What's the future of telecom regulation?
Nigerians have an unusually high. We get used to situations so easy. I'm not sure there is any country that is uniquely gifted with such ability to just go along with whatever. We adapt so easily to things. So if it comes to stay, it's just going to be complain. That's all.
Suffering and smiling.
Well, exactly. Fella put it that way. So, but it's not as if the 50% thing. If there is a guarantee of service, quality service, there won't be much complaint. Because when you have quality service, less drop calls, efficient, data services and the rest of them. Once you have that, you understand, then you can maximize whatever you have, whatever service they are giving to you to do business, to do proper communication that you do all the time. Then that in itself saves you a lot of cost. You see, but what we see where the real problem is, and why Nigerians are complaining, is because they know there are all these hidden charges, there are all these poor and inefficient services that you have in the telecom sector. That is why they are really complaining that this thing is so high. So for me, yeah, at the end of the day, if it really stays, which I strongly doubt, considering the pockets of resistance you are having, you understand? If it stays, well, Nigerians will cope, but there will be a lot of complaints. It might rev up a lot of complaints and here and there and protests here and there. But how far that is going to go in getting the consumer protection people to act is yet to be seen.
How do you compare Nigeria's telecom tariffs, to other West African countries? Is something that can be learned from them, or what levels are they?
Like I said, a while ago, was it last year? I was planning to go to Ghana. In fact, virtually everything, I was planning to be in Ghana physically until I opted for the more virtual, sports reporting, that we did in Kwara State Swan here. That was what I was planning to do. I had already done virtually everything. My passport was my ECOWAS passport was set. My documents were ready. And even one of the things I had to do was to make inquiries about getting MTN there. And I discovered that use of data in Ghana is far cheaper compared to what we have in Nigeria. You understand? Far, far cheaper. So the question, and the last time we spoke about this, I did mention this. I did give that instance that why is it so cheap in Ghana where they have lesser population than in Nigeria where you have a bigger market? You understand? So it will always come down to what I said the last time I was here, which is that, you see, Nigerians are being taxed outside the cost of doing business. Nigerians, for me, are being taxed so as to settle a lot of people within the corridors of power, so that the issue of government regulations and things like that does not fall on them. That is one of the problems. It's an endemic problem we have. It's the endemic problem of corruption that has always bedeviled service delivery in Nigeria. So that is just the reason why it's like that. So when you go to other countries where data is so cheap, you understand, in Nigeria it's so expensive. A few days ago, I was talking to one of my colleagues in Benin, and he was telling me that, look, do you know that in some areas in Benin, you can do, like when you go to Ring Road in Benin, that is, you just on your phone and you can do data free. It was provided by the state government. So I'm telling you what is possible. There are some government, you go to the NUJ, it's like that. Go to the civil service, it's like that. Because under Obaseki, it was paperless. So he intended, and it didn't cut a lot of cost for him. So it's cheaper to have data service run free for citizens, so that they can make complaint, they can do their service, they can do their ticketing. So what we are saying is that, this thing is doable if you have a government which is ready to work. You understand? So maybe the level of corruption in Ghana is not like what we have here. That is why you can have, cheaper services
like this
in those places. But in Nigeria here, where the cost of doing business is so high, not necessarily because of the things, the inputs you put in, servicing your
cost of
settlement culture. That is what is making the cost of business so high in Nigeria.
Okay, well, let's move to another conversation. This is about the Nigerian community in South Africa. There's been consecutive or reoccurring death toll of Nigerians in South Africa, and it has become unbearable. We have the 40-year-old Benjamin Okoli, and as well as a 50-year-old Jeremiah Okoye. And well, it's become concerning as organizations has alerted Nigerian missions in Pretoria and Johannesburg and urging authorities to take action to prevent further killings, but also still appealing to Nigerians in South Africa to remain calm and law-abiding.
Well, you see, that takes me back to an experience a colleague once told me while we were in I think it was in 2013. No, 2012. When I returned to tell His name is Juwon Soyinka. He's a very senior journalist and very cerebral gentleman. The thing was that he was in South Africa to do a report. I think it's about Nigeria, in South Africa, something like that. I've forgotten. It was a cover story. He was sent to South Africa to do that story. So we were just having this newsroom conversation. He was just telling me about his experience there, relating with Nigerians across board. And he then told me, he said, do you know that the police and other security agencies, you know what they call Nigerians? ATM. ATM, that's what they call Nigerians in South Africa. That it is so easy to shake them down because the average Nigerian is hardworking. So it's so easy to shake them down. So now, this is just my guess, essentially, is that, what is happening will not be unconnected to shaking those guys down and those guys refusing to play ball. And don't let's forget that there has been issues of xenophobia. Has been happening. And I keep on, instead of, this case of, trying to pass it to one tribe or the other that Nigerians are fond of doing, what they are simply out in South Africa is the uniqueness of the average Nigerian, how hardworking the average Nigerian can be. So that is what you are seeing. It's as simple as that. Somebody once gave me an idea, a South African friend, journalist, we are talking. Then he then told me, he said, look, that is going to continue to happen because you see, during that apartheid era, one of the fallouts of apartheid era was that most of those black Africans became lazy. It's not just activism. My booyah, Africa. That's just it. So they go, they stay away from work and things like that. Monies are contributed for fighting for freedom and the rest of them. So by the time independence came, apartheid was abolished. Let me put it that way. Most of these guys wanted to continue with that. So you now have Nigerians who are ready to work. You have other Africans who are ready to work, and they provide jobs for them. And within 1 year, 2 years, you see them building houses, you see them having, and the preference is for for most South African women is for hardworking men. You understand? So that thing spurred a lot of, rivalry, and that was what led to those xenophobic attacks that we were seeing. Then, you don't have the issue of, of course, there will be cases of small cases of, crime-related activities and things like that. It is normal. You understand? So, but using it to tar-brush the entire Nigerian and call them all criminals and things like that, I think is uncalled for.
Well, how well do you think the South African government and then the Nigerian envoy in South Africa are working closely to ensure the safety of Nigerians? Again, if you look at during the apartheid period, Nigeria played a very, very big role. In fact, donated hugely to South Africa at the time. Do they live in this realization, and what is your government's speaking to South Africans?
Yeah, see, I am deeply, honestly disappointed in Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa. He is a huge disappointment and a thorough embarrassment of the black race. I'm saying this, and I can say it to his face. Because you see, the history is there. What we have done. What did he do during that period we are talking about? So I don't really place any premium in whatever he says. I don't really think there is going to be any change. Because you see, look at that incident happened in the same place. So what you are talking about is an endemic. It's endemic. It is not, we are not just talking about the general brutalization that we know of police across board, across West Africa, across Africa. It's peculiar, is here too. But you see, we are talking of specific targeting, profiling of Nigerians and killing them. So, ordinarily he should be worried that a big brother that did everything for you, one of his children is there and died in your custody, and you are not making any attempt. You are not, there is no physical, there is no attempt to really get to the root of the matter and make a concrete statement, assurances to visitors who are living within your country. No. It's no, I don't want to say much about the man.
Well, just like you mentioned, it's do you think is something that it might not just be just Nigerians alone, because during that xenophobic attacks, it was targeted at mostly Nigerians and other Africans as well too. And then I recall that South Africans were saying that other Africans who are in South Africa should leave South Africa for them, that we've taken up their jobs and all of this thing.
Chidinma, have you forgotten Chidinma?
All right, yes.
See?
The beauty pageant.
I mean, that is how petty they can be. I mean,
but what is Nigeria doing about it?
That's
seriously?
my question.
What are government doing about it?
You see, it's a very, very very dicey thing. This is diplomacy. Whatever decision Nigeria has to take, you have to take into cognizance certain facts. Now, let me tell you one thing. You see, I recall a former minister of tourism, I interviewed. I can't remember his name. I think it was under the Jonathan era. He gave me some very interesting statistics. That you see, that in terms of our contribution to South Africa is about manpower. Is it the nursing sector alone? If you know the number of Nigerians, about 15% of the nursing sector in South Africa, thereabout, are mostly Nigerians. You understand? Then you are talking of tourism. The kind of that is tourism in itself is hugely dependent on Nigeria. You understand? So now you now talk of their companies that are in Nigeria too. So why we export personnel to them? You understand? They have their businesses here. So you see, there is a sameness of some kind of balance. So when the Nigerian government wants to interface on matters like that, it has to be very, very careful, so you don't upset a lot of economic, balance. Yeah. So that is some of the things that Nigerians will have to consider. But then I think that for a start, the Minister of Foreign Affairs you can have a statement from her. Then maybe the Diaspora Commission moves in, does its investigation, and let Nigerians know. Yeah.
Okay, let's touch on this conversation before we round off on the analysis this morning. This is about Ogoni. Protesters halt oil resumption talks in Ogoni over alleged stakeholder exclusion. They've shut down the planned Congress aimed at facilitating the resumption of oil production and accusing organizers of sidelining key stakeholders, including the movement for survival of the Ogoni people, as they expressed concerns over being excluded from discussions and warning that the rushed process could lead to distrust and tension.
Yeah, enough has been said about, I think recently we were talking about President Tinubu meeting Fubara and some Ogoni leaders. The essence of that meeting was to bring in all stakeholders, and I expected that meeting should have learned from history. There is nothing you can say about oil exploration in Ogoni land without bringing in MOSOP. As a matter of fact, MOSOP is that is movement for the survival of the Ogoni people. That was birthed by the late Kensaro Wiwa and the Ogoni 9, that were extrajudicially murdered, So, it's a very touchy point for them, and it's going to remain that way for a very long time. So, in doing things like this, I think they should carry everybody along if they are desirous of exploration to, start off in that place, to resume in that place,
All right. Before we just round up the conversation this morning, let's quickly take a look at the conversation in the National Assembly and then the defection of Senator Ned Nwoko from the PDP to the APC. He gave reasons as to say, the PDP has used to be a very big party, still quite big, but with so much discipline. But lately there's been so much crisis here and there. Reasons for him, according to him, for defecting to the APC, and of course the push for the creation of more states.
Well, unfortunately, whatever Ned Nwoko says, you understand, has to be weighed against the profile of the average Nigerian politician not being consistent. You understand? I've known Ned Nwoko for a very long time. I was in 2002. I recall interviewing him, and he was in what party was that? I was in a separate party then. He was vying for the governorship of Delta State. I'm talking of 2002. So you can see he's been, so there he has always been very shifty about allegiance to parties. You understand? So usually when people like that now talk, you understand, I usually take it with a pinch of salt. But then he's absolutely correct when he said that there are crises in the PDP, like we've been talking about, this issue of but it is gradually being resolved, because if you recall, on the secretaryship position, the appeal court has refused to grant a stay of order to Anyang. So Okoye is a substantive secretary right now.
All right, and Nicholas, because of time, we need to just leave the conversation here. We have time tomorrow again to pick it up and then discuss other interesting stories. Thank you so very much for coming in, and it's a good start for the week, and we look forward to the rest of the week as well too. And that is the start of the program. The views expressed is not in any way the position of Flow FM, but solely as expressed by the analyst this morning, Nicholas Omwaronoye. Thank you for coming, and thank you for listening. I am Adedayo Adeyemi.
I'm Danielle Shitta-Bey. Thank you.
Here to light up the city, 92.7, go with the flow. Feel your day with us.
We've never achieved anything from the subsidy remover. Instead, everything is good.